Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first public board meeting of the Board of Education for SD 72 Campbell River for the 2025-2026 school year. I would like to begin this evening by acknowledging that the school district 72 operates through a large geographic area. The schools locally in Campbell River and on Quadra are on the territories of the Leakville people. There's also the schools of Cortez, which is on the Palouse Nations territories, Comox in Sayward, and the Homolko of Butte Inlet. We honor our relationships with all of the First Nations that claim territory here in this region and thank them for their for their stewardship of these lands for time immemorial. Please note that there is a short production delay between the live event that you're viewing and the meeting participants, and the question and answer function is open online for questions on agenda items throughout this meeting. A final call for questions will be made after the last agenda item, and questions will be addressed at the end of the session. Keeping it short for chairperson's remarks this evening, I'd love to welcome everyone back to what I'm sure will be a great 25-26 school year. I hope that families in our education community had some time to recharge and relax over the summer, spend time with their own families, and enjoy some of the beautiful landscape and opportunities that the Campbell River region provides. Would like to also welcome with open arms Ann Tenning as our new Director of Indigenous Education. Anne is coming to us from the Central Okanagan with many years of education experience. And she is this Stubainis Nations here on the island. We're quite excited about her contribution to assisting us to elevate the outcomes for Indigenous learners within our region. Thank you so much, and on to Superintendent's remarks.
Great. Well, it's nice to know. Thank you, Chair Eddie, that we're just going to carry on the tradition.
Off we go.
Mirroring each other's comments, but that's okay. I just like to welcome everyone back to the first day of school as well. And for us here at the school district, and especially the board office, we've been back at it for 3 weeks, and we know our principals and vice principals have been back at it for a couple of weeks, and we know teachers have been in their buildings for the last week or so, prepping and getting ready. But there's something about today and the first day of school when you see the buses driving around and the kids waiting at the bus stops, it just re-energizes all of us and helps us realize why we're doing this. And I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about the last 3 weeks is seeing the level of excitement of staff as they were coming back in from their break, energized, ready to go, ready to have an impact on students' lives. So really enjoyed that. I think, one of the things for us as we start a new school year is we're always looking at enrollment. It's way too early on day one to give a definitive enrollment answer. That will happen definitively at the end of September when we do our 17-1 count, but we're feeling confident that we're going to reach and possibly surpass our projections. So we'll hope that comes to fruition in this next week as we monitor those numbers carefully. I was going to welcome our new Indigenous Director as well, but one little fun fact that maybe you did not know, first day of school this year is also Ann Tanning's birthday. So we wished her a happy birthday on her first day of school, and what a nice present. She gets to start her first day officially on her birthday.
We really appreciate you spreading that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I did want to say too, as we start every new school year, we're not naive, and we recognize that we have lots of challenges when we start up a new school year. I'll be speaking to one of those challenges later in the board meeting when we talk about the Carihi Fire update. But I also believe that we can turn those challenges into opportunities. And if we look at our challenges as opportunities to solve problems, issues, and move forward in a positive way, we'll be a better school district. So welcome back, everybody. That's great to be off to a fresh start.
Thank you, Superintendent Manning. On to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 17th, moved by Trustee Higgins, seconded by Trustee Briggs. All those in favor? So moved. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Is there any additions or alterations to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to update.
Under
And for that-
15B?
Yes, please. That's the Vancouver Island School Trustees Association meeting that we are hosting here October 34th.
Okay. Under 15B, is there any other additions or alterations to the agenda? Seeing none, the motion reads that the agenda is hereby approved as amended. May I have a mover? Trustee Hagan, seconded by trustee McMahon. All those in favor? So moved. And report of board decisions from the confidential meeting this evening.
We had a productive discussion of teaching, administrative and support staff changes and property, legal and financial.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gillis. There's no correspondence, public submissions, or agenda or educational submissions. So on to 12A, Secretary Treasurer Patrick, the presentation of the 24-25 schedule of internally restricted reserves.
Yes, so this is an annual request that we bring to the board. So this is part of last year's financial statements in that with most school districts, with any school district, there's usually a surplus reserve that the board can identify whether they're going to be targeted or whether they're going to be untargeted reserves. And these actually roll into the financial statements. They show up in note of the financial statements. And our board has a policy on it in where the senior management team will make recommendations to the board. We hope that the board will review those recommendations and if support, pass a motion, and those reserves as identified then get rolled into and included in the financial statements, which get presented at the next board meeting. So I have a list. So what I included in your agenda for the final recommendations, but what I'm going to show you is a little bit about what we have and kind of why we're making the recommendations that we are.
See it. It's one more.
Oh, there. Okay. So, and we really can't do, share the recommendations without talking a little bit about financial performance for this past year. So the financial performance, you'll get a more detailed, when you see the financial statements at the next meeting. But we did stay under budget slightly. But the problem with this last year was that the final budget, the amended budget mid-year that we asked the board to pass, basically took the deficit from a $600,000 under up to a $1.6 million deficit. And when that occurred, we knew that it was going to use up some unrestricted reserves, which are a bit of a cushion. And although we were hopeful that we would end up under budget, which we did, we were hopeful that we would end up under budget a lot, which would have preserved some of that unrestricted surplus and of course emergency contingency. These are the reserves that are there for emergencies, for emergency use, for unexpected cost overages. And that $1 million actually served its purpose just in some respect. At the time, I kind of highlighted that the cost escalation of employee benefits was outpacing any such funding that was being identified or being provided by the ministry. Provincially negotiated benefits, they are funded in equal pace with wage increases, say 2%. But when your costs are going up 20% in a year, we have to make cuts elsewhere. And that's what we found for the amended budget last year. And so the good news is it came in slightly under budget, but the challenge is that we really utilized a lot of the reserves. And you can actually, so here's a list of the reserves. This green column right there is what we started the year with. So pointing out the big stuff, we had $2.6 million worth of reserves, and now we're down to 1.23. So that's about a 1.4 million dollar deficit that we've reduced. And those reserves aren't available next year or the upcoming year. As I mentioned, the unrestricted, if you're a big line item, $1 million is gone. So, and that helped support or cover some of that $1.6 million increase, or decrease. So kind of just talking in general, Indigenous program. So when we target these reserves, there's only one that is actually required to be targeted, and that's from the Ministry of Education. It says that Indigenous targeted funding must only be used in Indigenous. That's the only one that is legislated for us to do. All the rest are up to the board and to management recommendations. So even school supply accounts. So basically, schools like to have a little bit left over. They order in summer. Sometimes they might need to save for an extra item. And so they do like a little bit of a reserve. But that has been quickly declining through the years. I think 1 year, 3 years ago was $230,000, and now it's international program to balance budget. So the budget for this year, we had identified to avoid cutting services that we would look to utilize some of the surplus from the international program. So you can see that being recommended over in the yellow. And then you see some other things that were spent. The health and safety, we're not in a place to recommend doing that again. So it's zero. SIMS replacement. Now this is a longer term, 3-4 year, but it is a risk item. And the older our system gets, the higher risk that we are not being able to support payroll, HR programs, finance and accounting. So we have left that in. We haven't added to it. Again, we're not in position. IT equipment. So you can see we actually did move a little bit of the IT equipment money around. The board approved a very significant budget increase for this upcoming year. And so we did take that back to where we expected it to be when we approved that budget increase of about $100,000. So they slightly underspent, and we're moving some of that to its next item, which is strategic priorities. In the past, we've recommended up to $200,000, but now we're down to recommending really what is available, which is $57,000. And then that gets us to the operational needs. So this is where the auditor typically comes and says, you need like 2 months, they recommend 4%. And our surplus policy has taken the approach of 2% should be sufficient. 2% is, it's not up there, I think it's in memo, about $1.5 million is where a good public safety net would be. The ministry actually agrees with this, with that sort of 2% target. But now we're actually down closer to 1%. So the good news is, without adding any additions, I did put this additions here just to show that we haven't actually added anything new. We are able to maintain the emergency contingency, but the unrestricted surplus is lost. So this upcoming year, you're gonna have to be very fiscally conscious. We're gonna have to stay under budgets. Some of that financial performance last year, some departments were over, instruction over quite a bit in a number of areas, staffing positions over, or staffing costs over in a bunch. We are gonna have to stay under. And so it might mean some different choices of how we cover things, especially when people are coming up saying, hey, I need an extra. The answer is probably gonna be more no this upcoming year than yes. A couple of things that we're looking forward to. Enrollment, as you heard, we're hopeful, we're positive, or we're hopeful for a positive outcome to see more enrollment, but we have to determine or wait if that's associated with more staffing. You had 5 students, you had 3 staff, you're gonna come out in a worse financial position. You had 30 students, you had like no teachers, you end up in a better financial. So it all depends where these students end up and what open spaces they're able to utilize. But ultimately there will be some changes there, but we're hoping for a positive outcome with that. And then classroom enhancement fund is, been in place for about 5 or 6 years. And of course, we're gonna look at that to see if there's some things that we're currently doing that we feel qualify. So potentially that would be an increase, grant to support existing services. So, and we had talked about that in the budget last year, where we identified 2 positions. Hopefully we can get a little bit more than that, but we have to wait and see. And there's a list of qualifications, and we're gonna look into that a little deeper. So one other thing, last thing, financial health. For years and years and years, boards have been advocating for more funding, not getting enough. And then the ministry and the minister would always point to school board reserves and say, well, you've got $10 million in reserves. You don't need any more money because you're not spending it, you're building. Well, I can say we have gone from 6 million about 10 years ago down to $1.2 million. So if there's any board that is trying to support services to students, and not have the budget, I would say that is what our board has been supporting and practicing over the last couple of years. And we just need that funding then and now to catch up with inflation, with benefits, and to better support the operations of our school district. So are there any questions?
Go ahead, Greg.
I think you've actually partially answered this, but here we are at the beginning of a school year, and I'm just thinking with the knowledge and wisdom that we have, what would you say to us are how can we, what factors could correct our current financial direction if we had some control over some of the things?
Well, so we've been talking about inflation for a number of years. The benefit escalation is partially inflation, but it's partly bargaining and funding of collective agreements, which is not sufficient. So you can add another one to the list of lobbying for the Minister of Education to properly fund. Part of it goes to BCPC to calculate and make sure that they're costing in the right items when they put these packages forward for funding. Any miss, it obviously, and it potentially impacts students and impacts services to students.
So just coming back to the benefits piece, this isn't a Campbell River issue. This is a provincial matter. But what is really contributing to the increase in, like, in your opinion, the exceptional increase in benefit costs?
So it's a combination of just general inflation, professionals who are charging more than with increases that are much greater than just general inflation, especially wage inflation. So wage inflation and wages go up 2%, but benefit providers are charging 10, 20, 30% more. If benefits will go up faster than what the funding is there to provide it. And usage, where there were, this last collective agreement, there were a couple of things added that I don't think they anticipated as much usage as ended up being provincially. And of course, so then therefore they didn't. So so the school districts have to carry that cost up until the next bargaining. I do hope that they can at least catch up, but that's to be seen. And you're not getting back what you've missed in the 3-year term, so.
Of course, you know, the ministry wants us to work as school districts for workforce retention and maintaining professionals in our districts, and with that, benefits are a really important part, but what can we do as trustees to advocate to the ministry? Like, what is there work being done at like the business professionals level, or is there a way that we can collaborate to unify our message?
At this point, so inflation as an item has been a focus of the School Business Officials Association. A report I think should be released shortly. I don't think it is identified and picked up on the benefit cost escalation. Quite the way. Now, I'm a zone director and I will put it on the next meeting, looking at every other school district over there. Not every. I picked a sample of island school districts and looked at their financial statements over the last couple of years, and they are facing the exact same things we are. So I believe in some cases they were more aggressive with their budget forecasts so they're not necessarily facing the unexpected challenges that we are. But their increases have been just as dramatic as ours.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Any further questions? Trustee Hagan?
I know there's so many different influences. I mean, look at just the cost of living for each and every one of us. The cost of running a school district is becoming more and more complex. I mean, I just read the other day that the sick time has gone up to 9.2. I'm not talking about our district. This is provincially, 9.2 days per year. And that's, people should use sick time. I'm not saying that either. What I am saying is it's another pressure that's added to the budget that the government hasn't addressed. And we need to, again, it sounds hokey to do it, but I'm gonna also say that we should put a letter into that we just don't have enough money to run our district properly, so.
Trustee Hagan?
Yes, before we broke for the summer, we had a meeting where we discussed, some of the frustrations of funding and the inequity between what we get to spend and what we have to buy with it. And talked about, some collaborative efforts that we might take up with our other partners, QP and BCSTA. Or BCTF rather, and BCSTA. And so I just don't want that to get lost. I know there's a lot going on right now and there's bargaining but I think we have to keep that in mind in terms of how we move forward with a strong advocacy voice.
I just wish to let you know that I did have an opportunity to speak with Tracy Loeffler, who is the BCSTA president, about exactly that, about our conversation around advocacy in partnership with our employee unions. And BCSTA was just in the process of developing an advocacy framework, in concern that districts were going to kind of go off in their own directions without a provincial lens when advocating to ministry. So there is a board chairs called this week where I will ask for an update on how that advocacy framework is going. But they do acknowledge that we united as a system, our voice is much louder than individual districts. And we don't want to dilute the message of the importance of increased funding by going off on different tangents.
Great. Thank you for keeping us.
And just to follow through on your suggestion, Trustee Hagan, would you like to put a motion forward that we draft a letter to the ministry?
I think I would at the end. I think we should, do we need a motion to accept your report?
Yes, we'll be looking for a motion to recommend that they be accepted as presented. If
Right, and then I think the
Second motion, okay.
second motion.
Do we have any further questions for Secretary Treasurer Patrick before I move on to the motion? We're okay. So the motion reads that the 2024-25 schedule of internally restricted reserves be accepted as presented. So moved by Trustee Gillis and seconded by Trustee Harper. All those in favor? Thank you. And then on to a secondary motion.
I would move that we draft a letter to send to the education and other trustees on Vancouver Island at least. And request that we look at the level of funding that's going in is quite inadequate. So if we could do that, that would be great. I don't know who would draft the letter.
We do have a communications committee. Who's on the communications committee?
You are. I think you and Trustee Gladich, if I remember correct.
Feeling the letter ready? All right, so we will draft the letter to bring back to the next board meeting, and we can have a discussion around its content and whether or not it's giving the message that we'd like to send. So the motion reads that the board of ST 72 Campbell River draft a letter to the Ministry of Education discussing challenges funding the system in a deficit budget. Something like that.
Yeah, so, sure. Sounds
Okay,
good.
discussing funding
Current
challenges.
funding challenge.
But I think just one
Current
challenge.
Okay. May I have a mover, trustee Gladish, seconded by trustee Briggs, all those in favor? So moved. On to the report out on the August 22nd, 25 board workshop. So on, as mentioned, on August 22nd, the board came together to discuss the findings of a board evaluation review that we participated in May. So we invited Gordon Lee from BCSTA to attend ST 72 and walk us through a confidential board evaluation process focusing on 6 key pillars. One being governance, on Indigenous education, on our ability to work with people, values-based, evidence-informed decision-making, planning for student success, and financial and resource management. This aligns with some management standards work that's being done at a ministerial level, and is really meant to evaluate board's performance based on the governance model that the ministry tasks boards of education with. Our results were quite positive. There are some areas for growth, and the areas were not surprising. We as a board admit that we are looking for more evidence of student success in alignment with our strategic plan, and we would like to see more of that in the public so that we can discuss it. We have a pretty good handle on our governance model. Of course, there's a large wish list around Indigenous education and what we can do as a governance team to improve student outcomes for Indigenous kids, for all kids, but also focusing on Indigenous education. Overall, Gordon found our communication style to be collegial, and that our board works quite effectively together and respectfully. And we will not be likely be doing the board evaluation next year. We do it every year as per our governance policy. But next year, coming into an election cycle, we'll probably use that time to more focus on transition pieces for an incoming board in 2026. On to 13A, which is the Carihi fire remediation updates.
Thanks, Chair Eddie. In my opening comments, I talked about some of the challenges that we're facing, and this is a major challenge that we're facing. We were disappointed to find out that we had delays in construction for portables that were supposed to be supplied to the school district for a first start. And we're informed quite late in the summer that they would not be ready and probably would not be here until mid to late November. So that caused us to pivot and try to find spaces for students who we had earmarked for those portables. We're expecting 4 new portables in September. So now we will be waiting until mid-November to get those. So what we've been able to do is house 2 classes at Robron alternate school. Busing will be provided for those students. We felt that in order to transport kids all the way to Oyster River, that was too long of a drive for 2 classes. If we'd have been looking at 5 or 6 classes again, we might have gone down that road, but we wanted to keep them as close to Carihi as possible. We're hopeful that those temporary classes will only be there for the first few weeks in September, and then we'll be able to transition them back to Carihi. We are moving 2 portables in district this weekend to Carihi, and we hope to have those ready by the 3rd week in September for those students to move back into those. We're also continuing to find solutions for our home ec class, and putting our heads together to sort out all possibilities for how we can have an effective working kitchen for them. And we have 2 classes that will be able to begin the school year below the stage. Those classrooms have been remediated. They're all ready to go. Power supply just turned on with fire alarms this afternoon, just in time to get those classes off and running. Not an ideal way to start the school year, but we really wanted to thank operations, the maintenance and custodial staff, thank the high staff and their admin team for their patience with us as we try to work through these issues as a school district. And we're looking for ways to try to continue to support them through this transition. And we know it's going to be a little bit rough, but they're professional and hardworking, and they'll do the best they can, as they have done since the original fire started at the end of last November.
Thank you for that. Not great news, not the news we were hoping for, but nice to hear that we appreciate staff and parents' patience as we continue to work through this challenge that we don't have a lot of control over in current times. On to finance warrant, number 12 of June 30th, 2025. I do have a motion to accept the finance warrant number 12 dated June 30th, 2025 be accepted as presented. Trustee Hagan, seconded by Trustee Briggs. All those in favor? Thank you. That finance warrant is part of the public meeting agenda. Committee reports. The British Columbia School Trustees Association Indigenous Education Committee report, and congratulations, Trustee Gladys. Looking forward.
Gosh, so much work. But I should correct the title.
Okay.
It is actually the Indigenous Education Advisory Council. Yeah, that was probably my error, but I didn't know until I actually arrived at the meeting, which was all the way in Mission.
No.
Yeah, it was 2 days of meetings and very, very interesting, and I can understand why it's called a council. So we met on the traditional lands of the Stolo to deepen our understanding of the territory and the school district's Indigenous Education Initiative, which is very fascinating. You'll have to go on the website and have a look at that, because I don't want to go on about this for too long. It's some of the things they're doing over there is just amazing. So the work at this council, I realize it's intended to inform and strengthen the work of all of us as trustees. So I hope you'll bear with me, because this is a little bit lengthy. So the gathering took place at Hatem, which are on the banks of the Fraser River. We were welcomed by Chris Silver, a young cultural leader, just an amazing, powerful voice. I was absolutely blown away. He provided historical and cultural context about the Stolo and the many tribes within the nation. Did a welcome song that almost blew the roof off. It was that powerful. He explained the sacred significance of the land on which Hatem stands, a site once threatened by development into a golf course, but later preserved as an interpretive center after its importance as an ancient village was recognized. Unfortunately, that center has been permanently closed due to funding cuts. Okay, we understand funding cuts, don't we? During a walk around the property, I realized that, some things have been literally laid to rest because of this place being closed. There was a welcome figure stored in a locked building, and 2 reconstructed beautiful pit houses secured behind gates. Instead of being used as a place to teach and learn. And children used to go there on field trips. Well, the site is now used primarily as a meeting place by locals. Its role as a place for sharing knowledge of the area's sacredness and the transformation rock has diminished. Nevertheless, the space provided a culturally meaningful setting for our group's gathering, allowing us to begin and later regroup in a circle and a very supportive way. Especially following a tragedy of the knowledge keeper who lost a son during the time that we were there and had to leave. So it provided us with a chance to rely on the protocol that connects us with each other and provides support when such a tragedy occurs. So our guests were Dr. Gwen Point and Honorable Stephen Point. Many of you know them. Joined the opening circle, and Dr. Point spoke at length. And I'm just going to highlight some of the things that she said. And this is a woman who's been in education for a very long time. She says that every school district should have a teaching longhouse or big house or equivalent space where staff and students can learn about local First Nations in an experiential and protocol informed way. Very powerful. Brought me back to my time in Chilliwack, where on the very first day I went to their big house and learned about who they were on my very first day. Actually, maybe it was the day before. She also felt that students must be encouraged to pursue post-secondary education, and that maybe, you know, we need to find out if we're doing that well enough in our district. Also, Dr. Point believes that racism is a reality in schools and must be addressed directly. She feels that that's very strong in district still, and I don't question her on that. She feels that Indigenous students need visible representation of their culture in school spaces and curricula. And, you know, maybe we just need to think about how we're doing. Where are we at with that? We don't know. We haven't talked about it really very much, I don't think. She had quite a profound, very simple but profound question. She said, each of us must ask ourselves as a board, what can I do to make a difference in Indigenous education? What can I do? So that resonated with me all the way home, and it's quite a long drive home. She reminded us that there are 34 First Nation languages in BC, but many are at risk of extinction. Probably the Ligdal language here, or Kwakwalan language here. And we have a responsibility as a school district to help to keep those languages alive. So very timely that we discussed it in our confidential meeting. There was some discussion about the terminology that gets used, and that the need for us to understand what this terminology means. Well, Indigenous is a global term meaning from the land. Many prefer to identify by nation. For example, for myself, I identify not as Canadian, but as Heiltsuk. That's how I identify myself, or Lil'wat on my mother's side. So it was felt that it was really important for us to become more familiar with the names of the nations, rather than just a global term of Indigenous. Terms like Indian, First Nations, and Aboriginal carry specific historical and political meanings that should be understood in context. I'm not going to go over those tonight, but it is worth spending some time on. This council is involved in quite a lot of work. There are subcommittees, and yes, I'm on a couple of subcommittees, preparing a really important information to raise awareness on things like land-based learning, which I know is on our strategic plan. What are some districts doing in terms of land-based learning in their areas? Bill 40 success stories to help us to understand that a bit better. Indigenous student leadership was very important, and I know we don't really have that group yet in this district, but it's something we maybe should think about. Also, they're looking at local education agreement success stories. Something that came up was this sort of emerging troubling reality in our society, and that is denialism. There's some deniers who refuse to acknowledge that residential school took place and that there were harmful policies that drove that initiative and had such a damaging effect on Indigenous people like my parents. So there's a need to kind of address that in some way, to raise that awareness with trustees around the province. That was very fascinating too. Also, people don't know about things like Indian Day School and the boarding home programs. So there's a need to kind of raise awareness about that. I really like this term. An emerging theme was the concept of wise practices. It's just such a gentle but profound statement. Approaches that are grounded in community experience and cultural knowledge that can guide effective action. There's a desire of the council to have a meeting with FINESC, around the table meeting with FINESC to talk about some things that I think will allow all of us to understand each other a little bit better, because FINESC, is responsible for some of the kids who actually attend school in our district. Things like student attendance. Apparently, that's a very strong concern by FINESC. How do districts define and support attendance? And the question, how can students develop belonging and success without regular school engagement? Which begs the question, what is student attendance like in our district? I don't know, but maybe we should know. First Nation languages. What does effective instruction and support for language revitalization look like in districts and in communities? So there were quite a number of other topics that came to mind, but I think that the question that they would probably want you to leave with us is, what can I do? What can we do? So very powerful, grounded group of people, and I just feel honored to be able to be in their presence. And so, yeah, if you had any questions, I could answer them maybe. Yeah.
That's, thank you, trustee Gladish. I think that that's a beautiful space for you to work in and represent and share with us, because we've never really had, you hear the reports at the meetings, at the larger meetings, but we've never really had any connection to the work of the Indigenous Advisory Council. And I'm very excited to hear where that goes.
I think that there's no reason why we can't take this and have a discussion about it, a deeper discussion about it, because unless we go deep and act on it, it's just going to get filed away or put in a recycling bin. That's my feeling about it.
Do you have any suggestions as to how we might be able to do that? Like, would that be something to bring Anne into, and maybe we can have some discussions around, because it did show up in our board evaluation that is learning that every trustee wishes we had more.
Well, and a plan.
Yeah.
Some kind of a plan, how to act on, the many goals that we set for ourselves. We just kind of stall on them, it seems. Yeah.
And I think doing that at this meeting and our public meetings, so that those people who
Hold our feet to the fire.
are watching or observing can track some of that discussion, and I think it deepens our resolve, our commitment.
It's not all on Jen, it's on all of us. Okay, so I just want that to be very clearly understood.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Yod. On to the VISTA committee update.
Well, I think that it's important for everyone to understand that we are a branch. We are the Vancouver Island School Trustees. We are one of a number of branches that exist within, and we meet twice a year in various locations, and we are honored as Campbell River to be hosting all of the trustees from the Vancouver Island School Districts October 3rd and 4th. And trustee Gladish and trustee McMahon and I have been working together on an agenda that's going to make this a most impactful and memorable gathering. But first of all, I just want to say that not only are we reaching out at the provincial level through trustee Gladish, but we're pretty excited to know that our chair, trustee Eddie, is now the chair of VISTA. Okay, which carries a huge pay increase.
Nothing.
But again, it's wonderful to see our district emerging and taking some kind of leadership profile, I think, within our other bodies. And The theme of our particular VISTA is Journeys to Success. And because our strategic plan is so clearly focused on student achievement, on honoring Indigenous worldviews, on student-centered learning environments, what we're trying to do is showcase some examples of things that are working within our district. So yes, other districts might be doing similar things, but it'll give some of our leaders, some of our teachers, some of our support staff, some of our Indigenous representatives an opportunity to share with others what they're doing. So Friday is basically focused on, I guess we would call them seminars. We're holding everything within Raw. And we chose that deliberately. We said we don't want to go to a hotel necessarily. We want this to be centered in where kids are learning. And so that's why we've chosen Robron as our focus area. People will arrive about 1 o'clock. We have a couple of featured speakers. One of them dealing with neurodiversity, another with basically land-based learning. And then we'll have a dinner together because we think over food, often there's some great networking and great opportunity for people to share ideas. And then we'll have a panel of Indigenous leaders from different nations within our own community, including one of our very own trustees who sits on the provincial council. I'm not going to name who she is. And it's going to be a great opportunity because our new district principal of Indigenous education, Anne, will be facilitating that particular panel. And then the next day, we will be dealing with branch topics. And Gordon Lee, who you mentioned from the BC Schools School Trustees Association, is going to be coming to join us and talk probably about board evaluation, some of the process that we went through. But I think it's really important for people to know that we don't sleep over the summer. Okay, as trustees, we are working hard, and we had a very productive gathering, I think, together to take a look at how do we take what we've done through that evaluation and how do we make it a working, active, organic part of what we talk about, what we focus on through the year. So I think that's what's really going to be critical. We'll be working on a development of a work plan, which targets very specific goals that we're working at through the year and draws in, some of the data that help us make some of the decisions that we're going to make. So I'm excited. Are you excited? I think we're going to have a really great time, and I want to thank Natalie for all of the work that she's done to kind of keep us organized and get that communication out there. I don't know if we have current attendee numbers, but I think it'll end up being between 50 and 60. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of covers in our kind of committee meeting. We've just been trying to look at all the little pieces like and tablecloths and all the stuff that you don't really. Cups.
Yeah.
We're trying to be eco-friendly. We're trying not to use a lot of paper and so on. We're using local caterers and Fork and Arrow. I guess maybe we're not supposed to say places, are we? Okay, could you erase that? But, too late. Yeah, but anyway, we're trying to patronize local people in our preparations. Anything that you would like to draw to?
Not a lot, I think. The song that I sing often is the many ways in which people can be brilliant that hasn't always been acknowledged through our system of education. And so we're trying to pull some people in to tell their personal stories, people who may have not been ideal students. They may not have been those perfect students, but they have turned out to be perfect citizens. And so how do we honor whatever process is required to turn as many of those, non-compliant, non-A students, into those fabulous citizens that we all depend so heavily on. So I'm hopeful that this is an opportunity for us to get together as the largest branch in BC's branches to just kind of chew on those ideas a bit and see where we can go with, envisioning a system of education that honors and respects and celebrates all of those atypical learners. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That concludes our, agenda for this evening. Are there any questions from either online or from the gallery regarding agenda items?
There are no questions that have come in online.
And I see a question from, CRDTA President Deb Coons.
Question, through the chair to Secretary Treasurer. Can we share the one item that was up, or can it be shared with us, the one document that was shared around the, budget? The one that you showed did not seem to be in here, or
So
I
that,
couldn't see it well enough.
so that is available in the financial statements that will be released, at the next board meeting.
Okay.
So they look a little different details, but the transactions from beginning to end is in the financial statements, 2 weeks.
Good. Question through the chair to, Trustee Gladish. The council, is that one person from every, like, is it a subcommittee of the VCSTA?
Yeah.
Where people put their name forward as being interested in that, or is there one from every
No,
district on the council?
it is BCSTA. It is the subcommittee, but the name is council. And
Right.
they usually send out a little email that says, are you interested in being on this committee? So I said, yes. And next, I was on that council. So no, there's not one from every district though. So it's a relatively small group, maybe 20 people. Yeah.
Great.
And the signing bonus will not offset our financial.
And the last question I have is the district looking at a process, like a post budget process for when we have extra money? Like, I think I understood in the report that there was gonna be a little bit of savings in IT, given some things there, and that was shifted to strategic planning or strategic proposals. Is there any consideration that when there is some money shifting that can happen, that there would be some input gathering similar to what it is? Because there were, I think you know what I'm trying to say. Sorry. So that's just a question to whoever may answer it.
If I may, I think like through the whole budget process, we identify areas with everyone that people would like to have. And usually in this final process, we're not talking a big pile of money, we're talking little bits, and they get parsed out to those areas that were of concern during the budget process. Okay.
Being no further questions from the gallery or online, may I ask for a motion to adjourn? Trustee Higgins, thank you, everyone.